defend yourself in a street fight. And I know this is one of the biggest and probably unique questions, and I'm bringing you what I believe it's an honest truth, okay? And this is mostly, and I've been clear on this, very inspired by Coach Firas Zahibi. Okay, Coach Firas Zahibi is tremendous. His tutorials are excellent. To be fair, I've been using his framework on the his framework on the how to work the jab and the cross now for a long time. Okay, so there is no question at all. And of course, he trained Georges St. Pierre, like one of the greatest ever in mixed martial arts, not only because of Georges St. Pierre integral approach, but also from the innovation that he brought into MMA, a set of things. So being very clear, his approach is tremendous. The videos out there, it's related to the honest things that no one tells you about self-defense, and is one of the questions that he gets more asked. It's also one of the questions that I get more asked, that is, how, besides can I effectively learn how to defend myself, and the second one is, how long does it take? These are like two main questions that I see coming up. And of course, one of the things that always comes up is, what's the martial art that I need to learn what's the martial art, or what's the thing that I need to learn in order to defend myself? So I'm gonna go step by step into what I believe. It's something that it's super important in here to understand as you start your journey into martial arts, into self-defense, either with us or not with us. But this is something that everyone asks. That is, what is the martial art that I need to practice in order to be able to defend myself? I say that in my case, I say it's Krav Maga, okay? But I'll go step by step into each one of these things so that we know what's happening. He gives a great answer. And I truly believe it's a great answer, to be fair. That is, what is the unique martial art that you need to learn and in order to defend yourself in a street fight? He says one thing, it's mixed martial arts, MMA. And I have to agree with him. Like, you see the fighters in MMA, they can kick, they can punch, they can grapple, wrestle, they can fight on the ground. That is tremendous, okay? MMA skills are like super, like striking, wrestling, and grappling, right? Just think about the three domains. You are standing up, you got himself in the clinch, so there is something about being grabbed, and then from there is something on the ground, okay? And there is transitions between all of that, right? So these MMA skills, think about these are foundation for self-defense. These are non-negotiable. If you're only practicing boxing, what happens? For example, if you are think that you're in the subway, right? Or you're in the public transportation and there's a bigger guy and the guy grabs you. Right? You are unable to punch. That's a reality. Okay, you've done Thai boxing, right? You can throw elbows, but can you work on the clinch? Are you able to do that? You fall down on the ground. What are you going to do if you only did boxing? Hard, right? On the other hand, if you only did, and I've got a lot of people in here that do wrestling, okay? If you only do wrestling, you find someone that is fast enough and that he can punch really fast, delivers you a 1-2, delivers you an uppercut. Are you able to take it? Perhaps yes, because wrestling is really one of those things that you put gloves on, and you've seen that there is some kind of training method on that. You put gloves on and you try to wrestle, and the other guy tries to punch. So that's pretty interesting, right? If you only train, and this analogy was brilliant to be fair. This is something like if you only train one discipline. I'm not going to talk about jiu-jitsu, of course, Brazilian jiu-jitsu or jiu-jitsu. Think about most of the things that you do time on the ground. Okay, if you only spend your time on the ground, what about learning how to fight against someone that is punching, effectively punching and kicking? We'll talk about kicks because kicks are also a fundamental thing. If you get kicked in the head, if you've never seen someone being kicked in the head, if you've never fought against someone that can kick you in the head, you'll feel that there's a difference, because in a matter of less than a second, you receive the shin or you receive the feet into your head, and you are sleeping. So his analogy is called the analogy of the locked door. You go to your house, there is something going wrong, and you decide that, okay, I'm going to close my front door. I only train boxing, and I know that most of the attackers, most of the people that assault go into the front door, so you just lock the front door. You forget the windows, you forget the basement, you forget your backyard, you forget the people that have access to the key in your house, like the landlord, if that's the case. So if you do single discipline training, guys, this is going to get you in a really bad spot, okay? And I'm going to talk to you also about the Krav Maga community, because probably the Krav Maga community or the self-defense community also brings you in a bad spot if you only do that, okay? If you only focus on, I know that this is my killing technique, okay? My chop to the head. And I see this a lot, like a lot. I have done karate when I was 15, and I can talk about karate. I spent how many years of my life in karate? 25. So I did karate at the highest competitive possible level, at the traditional level as well. And I thought, okay, I was punched in the street. I had to punch people. I did something similar to a fight club back in Portugal. And you get punched. If you have never been punched by a guy that is like 120 kilograms, even with boxing gloves, you don't know what the heck is happening. And if you try to go in and you try to grab, that's something. So it's a bit of sense of reality. Now, if you are doing self-defense and you cannot throw a punch, and if you cannot wrestle, and if you cannot grapple, you are not doing self-defense. You are doing something else. You are doing just a bit of the pie, just a bit of the thing that will make you and be potentially more safe. And I think he was very honest about BJJ only practitioners that can get knocked out. You've seen some of MMA contests in there where the person tries to pull to the ground and you get kicked or you get punched. But it's hard to put every discipline in a box, okay? Of course, if you do competitive sports, and this is super important. When you do competitive sports, you have an edge. You have an edge because you are trying to overcome someone that is highly trained on that thing, and it's regulated. You need to be faster, stronger, better than anyone. So you do have an edge. And to be fair, the founder of Krav Maga, or the person that is considered to be the founder of Krav Maga, Himi Lichtenfeld, and I tried to give some of my pronunciation over here, he said that very well, that he knew that if you had, and he was a professional, at least he had bouts of wrestling and boxing. Remember, this is wrestling and boxing, okay? And he knew that someone that has endured the life of competition, of high stakes competition, you do have an edge. Now, one of the things from Coach Firas Zaib that not only it chooses the MMA, mixed martial artist, as the single most important person to be ready in a street fight, but he also says that if he has to choose someone, he would choose a wrestler. And I tell you why I believe he does that. And from what I've seen and what we train in here, it's because wrestling is very hard. Very, very hard. Yes, striking is hard. Striking is really hard. Working on the ground is really hard. But wrestling, guys, that comes from the moment you grab until the moment you are down on the ground and you try to pin someone, and that's happening. It's extremely hard. It's the strength of someone against you. It's their will, their willpower, their capability, their underhook, their overhook, their pulls of the legs. That's really, really hard. So I think he gets this right. If you are doing MMA, you are doing a lot of the work that is required. And we'll talk about Krav Maga and MMA very soon, but stay with me because I think there was something that he forgot and that Krav Maga didn't forget, because that is super important. So what about weapons? Mixed martial artists do not train for weapons, and that makes a lot of sense, right? Because the UFC is an event where they put tremendous athletes fighting against each other with a certain amount of rules, because there are some rules, okay? But these guys, again, have all things. But what about a knife? What about a bottle or a gun or a stick? Got it? Some of the things that we train, they are over there, okay? Some of the things that you need to be aware of that do change these. And the fact is also there is no, I would say, after one stab, there is no one patting in your backs. But I believe you know that. But I'll give you an example, a technical example. If you do a neck clinch at someone and the person has a knife on his pants and he pulls it up, you will not see it. Okay, you will not see it. We do this often in here. You go striking. You put the person in the neck clinch, and the other partner has a training knife, and we try to understand how long until you understand that either the knife was coming in. So that is one aspect that, and it's supported by data. So one of the important things, if you and I believe you guys will like to have this, that is the following. 73% of the homicides in the US, that's FBI Uniform Crime Report, approximately 73% of the homicides involve weapons, firearms, knives, blunt objects. So street fights are not unharmed matches. Clear? So the thing that is killing people out there brings an object to do that. So think about that. And MMA training, depending on where you train and what you train, does not involve that. Clear? So something that definitely needs to be added in your training. Krav Maga, we do it in here. So we bring, but the key, I think you've seen this with other coaches as well. The key thing in Krav Maga is not, okay, now I'm going to train the knife, or now I'm going to train the gun, or now I'm going to train. Yes, all of those things could and can be practiced in isolation, but they don't happen in isolation. You see tons of CCTV videos. With the gun is potentially a bit different because in robbery situations they usually come up with the gun, but with the knife, people punch and then some guy pulls up the knife. There's tons of evidence out there. So that's one thing that I want you guys to think about. The second is multiple attackers. Okay, every mixed martial art technique assumes that we got one-on-one, right? That's the assumption. That isn't wrong. That obviously isn't wrong. But many things in MMA, because there is probably the highest way to finalize a match is what? Rear naked choke, right? Rear naked choke, or a choke. Okay. So if you go to the ground and there is more than one person and you try to apply a choke, it does take some time. You'll be kicked. You'll be kicked in the head. You will not have the same time that you need. I'm not saying you should not train to apply a rear naked choke, any kind of choke to someone, or even a submission. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that it requires training of the multiple capabilities. It requires a choice. What we train in here, it's pretty straightforward. You train with twin tens. Okay, I understand this is a situation safe to grapple, and it's your best understanding of what you are aware, and you train that safe to grapple. Okay, take him to the ground, apply a rear naked choke, apply some kind of pin, or if it is someone that you need to subdue and stay on the ground, stay with him there. Cool, got it? So that's, I repeat, that's what's called that's what's called a safe to grapple situation. And why do I say that? Because it just happens. And in fact, there is data that proves everything, but nevertheless, the Bureau of Justice Statistics that roughly 24% of violent victimizations involve multiple offenders. So think about 1 in 4 attacks comes from more than one person. MMA does not train for these. What do I mean by that from a practical standpoint? And this was taught, to be fair, by my Krav Maga teacher, Paul Pereira. He said a very interesting thing, that he trains in a way that he wants to avoid that his exit from whatever he does is always allowing him to address a potential second or third attacker. That's a really interesting way to train. So either you clinch, you knee strike, you elbow, you take him to the ground, perhaps not. What's the best exit line? Choose the best exit line that allows you to have control of the room, control of the situation. Control of the situation means situation. It's called situational awareness. If the door is over here, you don't want to run for the back of the building. Okay, so I think that's something that needs to be integrated in this data, this analysis. Okay, now it comes one thing that is not expressed in the video. I'm gonna be clear with you guys. We started with weapons, multiple attackers that are not in the MMA curriculum because it doesn't make sense to be. MMA is addressing a particular method, and a success method that is called UFC, probably the strongest sport in history in the last years, but I need to look into that. Situational awareness, and likely you've seen the idea that the best fight is the one that never happens, right? And I've been into things where, to be fair, in some of them I probably provoked it. I mean, what do I mean by provoked it? I mean that in New Jersey people swear, okay? That's a cultural thing. And I don't swear. I don't swear. Probably I swear at time when I'm with my friends, but I don't swear. And I clearly remember, I was at Panera probably 3 years ago, and something like that. This big guy, this huge guy comes in, he's really jacked up. And to be fair, okay, being clear, I was not in the best moment of my life, okay? I was addressing a set of personal problems. This guy comes up, he's on the phone, he starts swearing. F this, F that, and I'm like, man, I don't care about your size. And I asked him and I start looking at him, to be fair, that's what I did. And like, man, what if, and I told he asked me, are you looking at me, do you have a problem? And I said, well, you are swearing all over the place, so I don't see that as a good thing. And he tells to the phone something like this, okay, call 911, I've got someone for you. I'm like, I was ready for him, you see what I mean? But I felt we're inside a public spot. I knew that he was wrong doing that, but it could also be a cultural thing, okay? But nevertheless, he was swearing loud, and he says, do you want to go outside? And I said, yes. And I had my coffee mug in here. Coffee was really hot, and we went outside. I let him get out first. I could have closed the door. That would be much more intelligent at that moment in my life. But I got outside, and the guy starts saying, what do you want? And I'm like, I was ready, guys. I was ready. I was ready to pull the paper cup. I've done this, pull the cup or throw the hot coffee and go on top of him. But I didn't do it. I said, you stay there. You were swearing. That doesn't make any sense. If my wife and kids were there, I wouldn't like that, and you wouldn't like that. And we started with the conversation, okay? But I was far away, my hands were up, the coffee mug was here. so that thing was my situation was good. I think so. I could de-escalate the problem, to be fair, that I myself created, so I solved my own problem, but I de-escalated a lot of situations over the years to avoid fighting. Now, can you de-escalate a sucker punch? No, you can't. Can you de-escalate someone that is on drugs or is coming at you? Potentially no. But if you see it coming, you do. If you see some kind of behavior, man, breathe, use, it's called verbal judo, okay? I've gave drinks to guys on bars, okay? I've done that. It works better, okay? It's better, okay? It's way better. So those things are I think are important to work on, like the situation awareness, the de-escalation. And then there is also the part of the legal reality, okay? If you knock someone down, your head hits the concrete, and there are cases of these, and the person dies, you'll just be caught in manslaughter charge. Was it a proportional response? Well, so that's something to think about. Yes, there's this idea that you prefer to convince a jury than converse a coffin. But this is the idea that the world is only black or white, okay? So being aware of that, I believe it's important. On that matter, there is a conversation in there about striking, okay? Striking is when you use any area of your body to move kinetic energy, that is acceleration of your mass, against the other person, to knock him down or to hurt the person. Knock him down is an event, right? You knock someone down, the brain shuts off because of the pain. And there is this discussion about, because Baz Rutten, it's a tremendous fighter, he did pancratio, and he says that in a street, in a fight, you want to use palms instead of punches. And I think Firas Zahib does a great job on saying, show me a place where someone hit someone with a palm strike and that thing worked. And guess what? In Krav Maga, we also emphasize palm strikes. Why? Because they are simpler to do. We have less joint movement over here, right? We need to get multiple knuckles, a bit to be clean. And I think there is also good understanding that a palm strike is simpler. But, okay, look, if you learn how to punch, and to learn how to punch, you use gloves. I don't use gloves. I use gloves, but I don't use wraps. I don't use wraps. I do a couple of rounds in the bag with gloves, and I do rounds in the bag with my knuckles. Now, you want to treat your hand well. Got it? So, what do I mean by treating your hand well? In here, we use boxing gloves, 16 ounces, 14 ounces, depending on the size, so that people can spar and train. And we also use MMA gloves, mixed martial art gloves. They're around 10 pounds, 8 to 10 pounds. The idea is that you should learn how to punch with your knuckles, but you should also learn how to punch with your palms. And if you palm strike someone in the face with your palm, that thing hurts a lot. You do need to have a technique to palm strike. I think that is tremendous. So we got a couple of things that it's super important to understand. Mixed martial arts, as a highest growing sport, also has the following. It's usually weight categories. Okay, so like think about this, someone from the 65 kilos or the 140 pounds works in the 140 pounds. And by default, they are kind of age aligned. That is not the reality in a street self-defense situation. There is not a choice of you are my age or something like that. So training also needs to cater for that. What and how do you train when you are 67, and most likely your attacker is at least 20 years or 30 years younger. So you don't have the same capabilities, right? You don't have it. Just I'm 53 now. I don't have the same capabilities that I had when I was 20. Hopefully, I'm wiser. Hopefully, okay. Uh, and now I think some of you guys are gonna hate me for this, but I'm okay with that. I've been training Krav Maga since 1997. I've trained karate before, many years, not 1 year. I didn't do what I believe it's called in here. What I believe, that's my belief, but I'm also open to discuss that. McDojo karate, that's a very interesting way to think about things, um, because they exist. They just exist. I receive people many times in here that they said they have this grade of whatever martial art, and I've seen it across the board, also in Krav Maga, to be fair. And when I see their striking is not good, they have not grappled, they have not worked on the ground, and the integration of striking, grappling, ground, and then putting there the knife, the gun, and the stick, because we have the stick as well, it's not mentioned. Um, just blunt weapons is not there. So, and I'm like, okay, you've got your whatever degree and you've not trained these, so it's irrelevant the degree or the belt that you have. Even for me, of course. This is a law that is applicable for all. If you want to be a well-rounded fighter, person that works self-defense, you need to be well-rounded. You cannot avoid, oh, I don't like the ground, I'll not do the ground. And particularly in things like if you are more than 65 years old, you know that you will fall. So if you don't train falls, you are doing a disservice. And if your gym does not train falls, if it not teaches forward roll, back roll, if it doesn't teach you how to fall, it's forgetting one of the key things in self-defense. That is, look at the data, look at the things that can hurt you, look at the things that will kill you, and train for that. I hope that makes sense, okay? And I know from the data that is out there that more than 65 years old, 2024, more than 170 Americans died directly from a fall. Many others, thousands of Americans, had issues with maintaining themselves independent. What do I mean by that? You fall, you break your shoulder, you break your arm, your life is no longer the same. You stay in the hospital because you had poor life habits, and guess what's going to happen next? Well, some of them didn't break their hip, and then from a hip, the moment if you break your hip, more than 65 years old, men or women, more prevalence on men, I believe, you will die in the next 6 months. Overweight, other diseases coming. So you need to train for falls. Clear? More than 65. When you train for falls, you train before. You train the 20 years before. Because probably from your 12 years old up to your, where you are now, you've never made a fall. And probably you've trained Aikido or other martial art. We train for falls in here. We train for falls because the data shows that's a problem, a big, big problem. Yes, heart rate diseases are also a problem. We do have a solution for that. The people that come in here start working on their nutrition, learn how to eat better so that they are not overweight. But going back to how to defend yourself in a street fight. And I think it's super important that Krav Maga has a very honest conversation. I think Krav Maga has a tremendous problem, and that is kind of organized in two ways. One is lack of pressure testing. Pressure testing is a process by which you start receiving feedback from someone that is stronger than you. What do I mean by that? You do your sparring, you do your palm strikes, you grab someone, the other person fights back. But it fights back in a way that you are able to receive feedback. Does it go for your head in the first session? No, it doesn't. So pressure testing should be a continuous process that allows you to understand, oh, am I getting through this? Am I able to do this? Where should Krav Maga get pressure testing from? From mixed martial arts. Clear, because these guys have more methods. That's just the reality. Then, I believe from seeing many videos, from being in the world of Krav Maga for many years, that wrestling was forgotten. And I know there is a fine line between I'm addressing fighting with one person and I'm seeing the second guy coming in. Does that mean that I only train strikes or kicks? No. That means that I train how to strike and hit and also use his body on the next person to either take him down or use him as a shield. But it needs to be trained. So wrestling, we need to embrace, I think there's another person in this that influences me a lot, Ryan Hoover, and probably Burton Richardson as well, where we need to embrace wrestling, okay? These are references that I've seen out there. But what I've seen in here is that training, what I mean by seeing is watching CCTV videos, okay? Putting down CCTV altercation, self-defense, we see what happens, or someone being punched, and see that guys grab guys, man. That's pretty straightforward, right? Men grab men. They get close and they grab. So if you are not training for wrestling, and I don't mean like only the fingers in the eyes, because that thing is going to go off in a second, okay? The thing, that your ability and advantage to do that, yes, you shouldn't train how to put your fingers in the eyes. You shouldn't train how to hit the groin and grab the groin. Many people say like, oh, I'm going to grab the groin. Have you tried to grab a groin when you are doing wrestling? No, just try it. It's so hard. It's a small area, independent of what you think is your male capability, okay? And it's very hard to grab and turn. Even it's hard to hit as well. So we need to have the wrestling more and more. And all ancient societies wrestled. The Romans did. The Greeks did. The Persians did. We need to wrestle more. Okay, and they might think like wrestle with life, right? But it's wrestling in here. So fundamentals of wrestling need to be in the Krav Maga curriculum. And I think what I've seen from many critics, and I think they're right many times, that Krav Maga became bad MMA, bad mixed martial arts. So how do you stop that? Look, by your self-training, me, people in here, but as coaches also, am I training things that I've seen in MMA that are applicable in a more than one situation, more than one attacker, and then second, okay, what if the blade comes off? What if the gun comes off, right? So for Krav Maga to be the discipline, it needs to integrate these. So in self-defense for all, what we are doing is we spar, level 1. We add the scenarios. Scenarios is, okay, scenario is not sparring. Sparring is a bout, meaning a 3 minutes bout where people do things at each other. We'll have more techniques coming in, we'll have more things happening. And then, of course, scenario is super important. Is that isolated time in the world where he pulls a gun or he throws that punch and it's fast, it's unpredictable. We've seen in the gun workshop this week in here, we're watching a video and the pull of a gun, it's 1.37 seconds on existing trained officers. How much does an assault takes? 1 second, 2 seconds. So that's the time that you have. It's not a sparring bout. It's a different way to think about this, okay? So we pressure test weapon defenses, and we train for multiple attacker scenarios with resistance. I think Krav Maga at its best is MMA, yes, plus everything the street actually throws at you. And its worst is technique memorization, old school curriculum with a compliant partner where he throws the punch and he stays there. He throws the knife and the knife stays there. And we cannot do that. We cannot do that anymore for the sake of Krav Maga, for the sake of self-defense, for the sake of the people that pay the dues or the membership of the gym. Okay, that's it. Like, don't do that. Don't do. If you are training in a place where the attacker throws a punch and it doesn't recall it, or the attacker throws a knife and it doesn't, or even if you are not doing that, there has to be a reaction. Okay. So I brought wrestling drills that 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 exactly do that. Imagine you are clinching and someone pulls the knife, okay? And we need to do that in the beginning with, of course, with controlled aggression under this big physical and cognitive load. Because you feel like, what's it? And how do you know that? Because I'll give you an example. When we are training on the ground or we're training in wrestling and you see the knife going out and we've got one of those in there, of course it's not bladed, okay? But when you see that thing coming out, there's something that triggers your brain. I think that's super important, that you feel that something triggers that brain, that capability and that will to survive. So when you are training under that physical load, Krav Maga becomes better. The discipline that you've chosen, hopefully here with us, or whatever you are, it just becomes a solution for a problem that causes many people either to lose their lives or to get injured. Okay, so I'd like to, I think if you look at Coach Fir Zahib answer and this video, and of course, mixed martial arts, MMA, I think it's probably the best answer for people who want to be combat athletes. There is no question about that. My answer for people that want to survive, it's different. It does depend where you are. Have you been conditioning your hands for 40 years? Okay, see my hands? Got it? See my hands. They have knuckles, okay? And if you see more karate fighters, they'll have knuckles. And you don't want to be punched by that thing. It is true that Wolff's law, the bone adapts to mechanical stress. It's correct, but it does require time. It takes years of progressive loading. It's not that relevant for someone that starts self-defense at 65 years old. Clear? You start at 65 years old, you need to go step by step into a conditioning process that one day will allow you to punch, okay? Okay, now, can you fight with a broken hand? Yes, you can. That's why, to avoid a broken hand, or a hurt hand, just punch the bag for a while, do it incorrectly, and you'll feel like your wrist, oh man, my wrist is hurting. Do that with the palm, proper technique, going up, it will not hurt. Slap it, not hurt. Of course, do it too much, do it wrong, elbows goes off. Now, again, if you're more than 65, I especially look at this population because I work extensively with it, okay? Super important. Also, the UK Biobank study on vigorous exercise and longevity, I've already addressed this, okay, in other video, also shows that you do need high intensity bouts. And there is a set of folks out there that in our videos that commented, oh, do you know senior physiology? Yes, I do. But more important, because the senior physiology is the same physiology as it's human physiology. It does changes the way that age brings things into your system over time. And that's why we need high intensity exercise. Guess what? Coming from either mixed martial arts or Krav Maga, Retsev exercises. Okay, so I wanted to give that background, guys, on that side. Going back to this, you don't need to be Georges St. Pierre, okay, to defend yourself. You need to be aware, so you know how to de-escalate. Be prepared from a physical from a physical conditioning. You need to be able to run, to lift, to grow, to push, and you need to be able to fight in the full spectrum. That is, you need to be able to box, to call it kickboxing. You'll be able to punch with your hands, elbows, headbutt, throw knees. You need to be able to do that. You need to be able to wrestle. You need to be able to fight on the ground. And you need to be able to address or train to address multiple attackers, knife, gun, and objects. I call it stick. And that's because, why? Because that's actually what's out there in terms of what can hurt you. In particular for the population that is more than 65 years old, you need to be learning how to fall. In particular for women, men attack women. Got it? It's not women that attack women. That's not even relevant. Men attack women. So you need to train against a stronger attacker, a man, not a woman, okay? Think about this. He has more testosterone. He's bigger than you. You need to be training against someone like that. And that's what we do in here. Our women get attacked by men in a respectful manner. What do I mean by that? You start addressing that when there is contact, you know where to grab, okay? This is a class. I think that's super important to put out there. You pick up the data from the world. And based on the data from the world, you use the best disciplines that allow you to defend against that problem. That's what we do in here. That's what we do every day in here. So, here's my ask. And you might not agree with me, guys. You might say, I do my whatever. I do my jiu-jitsu. I do my karate. I do my Krav Maga. Or my Krav Maga is better than yours. Look, I'm okay with that. If your discipline integrates all of these principles, if it respects the age that you're in, if it makes you evolve as a human, if it makes you be better physically conditioned, that means push-ups, V-ups, squats, running, sprints, those capabilities, jumping, pushing, throwing, if you got all of that, and then you are able to fight and learn to fight in all of these ranges, and you do have an understanding on how to address and de-escalate, then we're good. If you are not doing this, text me and say complete. Text me, like let's become a complete athlete. I love the idea. I love the idea of becoming a complete athlete. I train for that. Can I do it? I'm trying, and that's what everyone in here is trying. Like we bring the best methodologies for you to learn how to defend yourself. So I want to finish this with a call out to all of you that were here today. But a lot of the data that is out there regarding the studies and the reason why it's so important to learn how to defend yourself and not only take one view of the world. If you like these comments, if you like this content, please, press the button below, either like, again, comment. I'll send you my full analysis. Comment complete. I'll send the full analysis that I've made coming from Coach Firas Zahib. And also, how can I help you as you move ahead in your self-defense journey? We have an open studio in Morris Plains, New Jersey. We can also support people across the world. That's what I do more. Drop me a line. And if you disagree, that's fine. But do tell me why do you disagree, okay? I think that's super important. And look, we have an open door, guys. Show up, train. That's the most important thing that you can do for yourself, for your health, and for the world. Enjoy your day.